Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of the Hansen Brothers podcast. I'm Timmy and I'm joined by my brother Kevin. We're teammates and world champions in rallycross, and this podcast is our space to catch up while traveling the motorsport world. Kevin, welcome. Nice to start doing this, right?
Yeah, so excited. Thank you. And well done for that nice intro. I'm really excited. Our first proper podcast. We were not going to lie. We had tried a podcast before, but this is obviously the first one that's ever going live. So I'm so excited.
And can you tell everybody, Kevin, why are we starting this podcast?
Well, it's because, we're obviously brothers. We've grown up together. We've lived together, obviously, at home. And then you moved and I moved and life's been all over the place. But we're still racing together. We're still, our best friends. And, obviously with me living more in the UK. And so we just felt like, we're not having that conversation. So this is really a space where we are able to catch up every week. How is life? What's happening? How was the last race? How was the previous race? Like all things that's happening in our lives, and just having a conversation like that. And also sharing, maybe some more deep-rooted topics that we're not always sharing to everyone. So that's really the background of this, the reason why we want to do it. So you and me can have our brotherly chat, but making it a bit more for everyone.
Yeah, it's going to be nice to be able to catch up consistently, because sometimes, when you're there and we do our things, we don't really talk too much. So this will be fun. But you said going into the racing and stuff, we obviously just came from a race in Istanbul. So let's move into how that went.
Big time.
We had the season finale in Istanbul, Turkey, just now, and we managed to finish second and fourth in the FIA World Drivers' Championship, second place in the Teams Championship, and it was all decided there in Turkey in the dry and wet, slippery conditions. First of all, Kevin, our goals coming into the race, we were second and third, was our goal to pass Veiby for that, getting the double podium for the team. We didn't quite pull that off. But I still think we did a good job, right? How do you see it now, 2 days later?
Yeah, I think we did. In the end of the day, going into the race, we looked at the track. We've been there before. Last time it was there, it was it 45 second lap or so, something like that. And so it was really quite quick. So we thought, okay, grip's going to be good. That's good for us. Obviously with the electric car, it's heavier and we need that grip to be able to use our little power that we have. Otherwise it's really challenging. Like in Sweden, when it was rain, we were so far off. But then, I think that was the expectation going in, that we might have a chance at this. And I was about 10 points clear in second, and you were really close there in fourth going in. So we were like, okay, let's focus on that. But as soon as the practice and everything started, we were 2.5, 3 seconds behind on the first practice because it was so slippery. And I think that was really what changed the weekend a little bit, because in the end it was not the track suiting our car at all. And it became, instead of an offense to try and get as good possible result, it almost became like a defense. We got some starts, but then, we just had to defend like crazy. Like Saturday, just in general, Saturday was dry, so it wasn't too bad. It was still like a second difference in the petrol and our car electric. And on the Sunday, up to 3 seconds a lap. So I think, the expectations quickly became a very hard reality for us with our car. But obviously we were going for second and third. We achieved one of those. And just shy on the other one. So a little bit frustrating, of course, but in the end of the day, we're second in the team championship and I got second in the drivers, which is good. But next year we really need to get ourselves on the top.
Yeah, but it turned out to be like an impossible challenge. I think how much faster they were, the petrol cars, and the defense that we had to put up, and how good the team strategies had to go. So KMS also started to pull the team strategies after Johan had actually secured his gold, even mathematically. Then he was trying to play the teammate role. He was giving up positions to OC both days, and he was trying some mad moves on you, trying to hold you up. Even one time he skipped the Joker lap just to create some carnage there. In what was that, Q2 day one?
No, he missed the Joker in the final on day one. When after he tried to overtake me, it just became like KMS all during the weekend. I had on the Saturday 3 races with them. Every race they absolutely rammed me every corner. And I looked on back on the final, and it was when he was following Niklas, they didn't do that. They were like, Johan was following, didn't touch him. But with me, bang, 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 every corner, and OC as well. And they just, battered up my car, really. So I think they had one intention, and that was to destroy and mess up. And I think that's just not really what we want to see. But in the end of the day, we are clever and we defended.
I think like maybe it's controversial, but what is rallycross at the end of the day? Rallycross is gloves off hard racing. That's what people want to see. Like, look back at the past 40, 50 years. What are the best races that you look back at? It's when things go mad, because like it's only rallycross where it can go that mad. So, okay, we played it a bit dirty, but in one way, like you and me are like always playing the team game, and we have done things before. I think that's frustrating to them too. So they try to kind of give back what they have received a little bit, but we do it in very different ways. I think one interesting point, and I think a defining point in OC's championship hopes to get second, was the final day. He had to beat you. He had to win the semi-final, and he had to be ahead of you in the final by 2 places. So what do they have to do? So OC has to win. It was kind of a carnage in their semi-final. I haven't actually watched it back. I just watched it like from sitting in my car on pre-grid and kind of seeing them go by every lap. But Gronholm took the start, but they got by him actually on pace, and they were able to finish first and second. Johan gave up the lead on the final stretch to the finish line, kind of parked his car and let Veiby go by. And I think that like the pressure he's under, and you have been in plenty of championship battles, and me too, and you're under a lot of pressure, and you really want everything to go right. And then in the semi-final, Johan kind of made a point that like, look how much faster I am, look how far ahead I am, but I'm going to park on the finish line to play the team game. And they did. On paper is correct. But what's he feeling? What's OC feeling coming into the final? He's feeling very stressed, because when you don't have the pace, when you've just been like destroyed like that, like been really driven away from in a race, you don't feel good. You don't feel confident. You feel like you're not doing enough. So I think that he was under even more pressure because of that, and he felt like he had to gamble on the start in the final. And he had pole position. They had done everything perfect, but I think like he was not feeling in the perfect zone coming into that final. I think he was feeling like he had to do more than he could. So he gambled with his start settings, because he was like, I have to get this start, I have to win this start at any cost. He went down something, and he stalled off the line. And I think that came from like the stress. You can relate. You know how it feels not being fast enough and then still being on the front row. You're like, everybody's chasing me.
Yeah, 100%. I think also like it is, you can only control some things. You can control your own car, and that's all you can do. And in the end of the day, they didn't execute their race well. He bogged on the start. I think it was a long hold also in the start of the final, and that I could hear from my car. Obviously, it's quiet in our cars. I could hear from my car one, when they put the preload on the clutch, I could hear one going really like, so maybe he was just putting too much preload and messed it up. But in the end, you have to deliver under the pressure. I think we did. We had a terribly slow car, and they were so much faster. I mean, I saw the semi of Ole Chris, and he was, missed the start, was in the back, fifth, slide around, terrible, but they were so much faster. It's just to drive around. But we didn't do it. We executed our race perfectly, and I think that was really what kept us in a good position. We had immense pressure because we didn't have an advantage anywhere. The only thing we could do was try and make, a good launch and be there in the fight and defend. And we did that great, which I'm really proud of us for doing and playing it the right way. But we didn't have the upper hand at any point. So I'm really proud of that. And looking at the weekend in whole, getting the championship result, that's what I think we have done great all year. And something that even if we speak about it here, there's no like secret to pick up, because we know exactly what we do that is good, and nobody can have that trust, because it's about trust and respect. And like when you let me go in the semi, you do it because you know, okay, let's go on the fourth lap, build the confidence, everybody push free, and you know, it's a much more sincere, deep-rooted appreciation and like need. We want each other to do well, and that's something nobody ever been able to create, and that's our great strength.
Yeah. But you said like we were under pressure, but like I had no pressure, because like after OC made it to the final, I had no way of passing him anymore. So he had already secured the podium position. And then between the semi and the final, I was like laughing at the situation, because how much is going on. But I'm just kind of a support person. I'm like in the background. I'm just gonna support, you know. And it was impossible in some ways, but we knew what we had to try to do. And after he missed the start, and I was able to joker on the second lap, coming out ahead of him, then it was like, okay, now I actually have to work now, you know. Now it's game on. And there was a big moment, because obviously I come out just in front of him. I have to cover like mad in this 3-corner tarmac area in the beginning, but it's wet, so it's a bit harder to make a crazy move in wet than it is in dry. He overtook me the day before. Actually, like looking back now, pretty hard move, but fair, you know. It's like, okay, good move, you know. But it's harder to throw your car into some gap when it's wet. And I defended, but then the difficult point will be like now we're catching Grönholm, who at this point, I thought he had a puncture or something, because he was going very slowly. I don't know what was their issue during the late part of the race, but they didn't have their usual pace. So we're catching him very quickly while I'm defending from OC. And like, okay, you're catching a slower car while defending. Like, this is a dream for trying to attack, because when unknown things happen, like, then gaps will open up. And I knew that, like, closing in on Niklas, and luckily through into that gravel right-hander, he makes kind of a mistake. He misses his turn-in. He was quite early on the brake. Something was obviously off with the car. And I just knew, like, at that quick moment, offense is the best defense. So I just kind of had to chuck the car in there into the gap and see where we come out. If I ended up on the wrong side, cheers. But if I would have ended up on the wrong side of Niklas, then I would have been overtaken. So it was like a lot of things going on, like managing in front, managing behind. But I think, yeah, as they said in the commentary very well, like, now it's done. Like, now Kevin will get the second place. And then you let me go on the last lap. I think the spotters managed, like, okay, Kevin got the silver in the championship. Timmy will end on the podium in this race for good spirits. So yeah, thanks for that.
But also you let me go in the semi, just because of, you know, let's put all the favors in the right place. Get me as many points as possible when we have the control. You let that go. You should have finished ahead of me on that semi. Should have been in that better position in the final. But obviously we played a team game. So I was really happy when they came on and said swap positions. I was like, yeah, that's a very good idea. I was really happy about them making that call, because they felt like you did that. You gave a lot to me in the semi, and it was time to give back, and now it's equal, and you deserve that third place because you had let go of your advantage in the semi. So I thought that was a great shout by them, and I think Kenneth and Graham was quite on it on the strategy this weekend, especially towards the end. And I think we put quite a bit of pressure to make sure that they understood that they have a lot of responsibility in the spotters tower to really be able to manage the race, because in the end of the day, we have to drive the car as quick as we can. We can't think about all the other stuff. Sure, you know, it's Ole Christian in front, you have to overtake him or whatever it can be. You know, approx the race, but they have to have understanding of the stuff we shouldn't need to know about, which is championship and all of this. So I think they did that well. I think in the end of the day, we didn't have a car at any point this year, except maybe Portugal, where we had a little bit of good advantage or so. But like any point this year, we had an advantage, and still we are able to be clever and outperform them on the rallycross side, which is something that is very difficult for money to buy. So I think that's a very comforting thing for our company moving forward and our team. And we just need to keep that spirit and improve the other bits, and hopefully the FIA can assist us. But generally, the weekend was was very hard. I think both of us were quite frustrated with the lack of speed that weren't we?
Yeah, a bit frustrated with the lack of speed, but also we kind of maximized it. So the electric cars are faster on the straights and petrol cars are faster in the corners due to we have more power, they have less weight. And this track had a lot of corners. It was a very long lap and no real big straights where we could put our full power. We didn't have full power at any one moment during the event.
We're full throttle, but why are we not full power? Can you just explain that? I think you're the technical guy between us.
And this gets quite deep quite quickly, technically, but it's very important to understand if you're a fan of the sport, because we say a lot of times the weight is the big difference, but driving-wise, the biggest difference between electric and petrol is that in petrol you have a prop shaft connecting the front to the rear, which always makes all four wheels spin the same speed. In electric, we've got one motor in the front and a separate motor in the rear. So they can spin different speeds, which means that the best example is accelerating. You're putting full power, and then you're putting full power on the rear motor. But because the weight goes to the back, then front gets lighter while the rear gets heavier. So you're putting maximum power in the rear motor, but the front, because it's light, it wants to spin. So the software cuts the front to give the best traction, and it's a very long straight before we got enough weight on the front to be able to put the power. But if you have a prop shaft like you have in the internal combustion, if you have full throttle, you have full power. It's that simple. And that also makes the braking a lot better, because on braking, they cannot lock the fronts or lock the rears. They can only lock all four, which makes the braking much more efficient than in Formula One when they lock the fronts coming into most corners. In rallycross, that usually wouldn't happen because we got the prop shaft, but now we have to manage that. So that's one key difference. And that's why on this track, because the straights were too short, the software and the didn't have time to put the power back onto the fronts, because it would have just given us front wheel spin if we put absolutely full power on both motors.
Yeah, I think that was important to explain, because everybody just hear, oh, we have more weight and we never have actually more power. So, but I explain why, because in the end of the day, it's quite complex. But I think that was a good job. Quick, easy explanation. I always say, if you know something very well, you can explain it very quick and simple. And I think you did that. So yeah, that was good.
I think we will talk about that more on this podcast, because it's a bigger topic, maybe even worth its whole episode. But we're new to podcasting and have not done this before. So coming in, before jumping on this call, I wrote to ChatGPT I'm Timmy Hansen. What podcast questions can I ask to my brother to ask about Turkey last weekend?
Okay.
And one question it said I should ask is, what happened on the last lap? Could you have pushed more?
Actually, it's quite a fun book, because after I let you pass and I got in the information in the ears, okay, Timmy's ahead and there's full free behind, you have 4 seconds. And then I understood, okay, it's secure, it's fine. So that was halfway through the penultimate lap. Out on the last lap, I was like, let's enjoy this lap. You're going to finish second in the World Championship. You have a car that you're driving around on a great racetrack. You're focused, you know everything perfect. So let's enjoy it. And I was really doing it. So for sure, I wasn't driving the flat out and perfect. Maybe I was, 99, 98% of that, of what maybe perfect would have been. And that, gives you quite a lot of slower lap time. But I was just enjoying it. It was safe. I didn't have to take any risk. And I was driving around on that gravel okay, if this was a test, I would brake here, little rotation. Okay, don't go too close to the wall because we don't want to look silly here. And especially if you're thinking about something else and you do mess up, then you massively look like an idiot. So I was oh, let's enjoy, but also let's be a little bit clever. So no, yeah, I could have gone quicker on the last lap. But also I was quite happy that I was able to enjoy that last lap, because they don't come often when you drive in a World Championship and you can actually enjoy it for a moment.
Yeah, even ChatGPT saw that you weren't so fast. Yeah. I thought it was so funny. Could you have pushed more? Okay then.
But you were pushing flat out, because you were really quick in the. It was strange, because on the Saturday I was quicker in the semi and final. So reverse from the heats, you were quicker than me, and then I was quicker in semi and final. Then I was quicker in the heats on Sunday, than you, and then in the semi-final you were quicker than me, and we don't really know why.
No, it was really swapping pace there during the race, and it was hard to put the finger on why. It was like if you had a good feeling, you kind of had the slight edge on me, and then building up to like half second gap, and then I had a better feeling than you, and then that was building up to half second. But we had slightly different setups, which kind of suited different. So I drove the car a bit softer all weekend, and that probably suited the wet conditions better. Also, I had some balance issues on the Saturday that the team was able to iron out. Had a lot of mid-corner oversteer on the Saturday, which made me have to go very slow into the corners because it would always oversteer so much. And that was very frustrating. Like in the final on the Saturday, having to underdrive the car because not like to stay clean, not oversteering too crazy in the middle. Like underdriving and being too slow. Like I saw you guys pulling away slightly. Oof, that was tough.
Frustrating.
It was much better on the Sunday. Then I was feeling I could push my best and I could do good. And okay, I was still losing ground to Johan and Juha. We should talk about Juha Rytkönen in a second, but I was still losing ground to them. But at least I feel like I'm driving well. And then you can accept being driven away from. It's just more frustrating when you're not driving well and getting driven away from. That is hard.
Yeah.
But Juha Rytkönen, what a surprise. To himself mostly, I think. I was less surprised than him that he won. I told him in the podium, like, I knew in France that you were fast.
Yeah, I saw that on the broadcast as well in France, that he was so quick when you competed against him. And I just love that team came in for one race. They put a lot of effort into changing to sustainable fuels and made that happen. I tested that car a couple of years ago and did a lot of the development for it. So I know how good that car is and how nice it feels because I was part of developing it. Surely it's come further than that now. But I mean, he drove a great race on the Sunday. And I just love that the KMS team is arguing that no, it's Johan that is so dominant, and it's not the difference of performance. It's just Ole Christian is similar speed like everyone else. It's just Johan that is so much better, and then someone comes in and drives 3 seconds away from him. So surely it's not the driver. It's the car that makes a big difference there. But Johan did a great job. So big gap from Johan in the final, and he's just a nice guy and so finished. Like, yeah, I'm happy, no words, and thank you. It's like all we got.
He really came alive when the track got wet. Then suddenly he had mega pace. We saw they had good pace already before, but him and Steven Bossard, they kind of kept crashing into each other, teammates, during the heats, and I think it was a very difficult start to the race for them, and Steven didn't make the finals any one of the days, but they had great pace. Like we saw that, like following very closely on the free practice lap times and the lap times in the heats and so on, that they had great pace. But in the wet, they had stellar pace. And to be able to drive away from Johan in the wet is, I think, a huge achievement because Johan has been arguably like even more dominant when the track has been wet in recent years. The car is working perfectly. He's driving very well. And you are now jumping into the World Championship first time and win in those conditions is extremely impressive, I think. And I hope that kind of motivates them to come into the World Championship next year because like we need them in the championship. Okay, it will be, tougher competition, but the championship needs more cars. I think all the fans can agree on that. And it also proves how competitive rallycross is as a whole world. So Johan and Steven have competed in the French championship. Steven Bossard was the champion in France this year, and the level over there is really strong. I did a race a couple of weeks ago, jumping in a one-off, and the pace is really good. The teams are very professional. It's just that all of these teams don't necessarily go to do the World Championship, but I hope this motivates them now to go for a world title, not only a French title.
Shows it's possible, and they are welcome to come and fight. And sure, look like one driver can win if you get it all right, but also you cannot make the final any point, and you can have a really tough time. So it's like Patrick was also there. He's a European champion, great driver, so much talent, but also the World Championship. I know from my own experience, I was a European champion in 16, went into the World Championship in 17, and it is different gravy. It's so much tougher to be at that level. Nobody makes almost like mistake. It's a higher level. Every part, engineering, strategies, choice of tire, setups, the drivers, everything is just pushed so much harder to the limits, and there's no room for error, and you have to be perfect. So I think that is really a showcase of, you can get it right. Everyone is welcome. If you're a good team, you can win. But also, if you don't quite get it right, like maybe Steven and maybe like Patrick, they didn't quite get it right, then then you are not there. There is not the room for error. And I just hope that in the future we can have a really nice and equal EOT, equal of technology, so we can have a really nice tight fights throughout the season with everyone and have a really tough. I think this weekend we had the best amount of drivers that were, let's say, able to be in the final. I think all 9 probably were capable as drivers' talent to be in the final in the World Championship. And I think that's been a long time since we had that in the World Championship, not even in 18. Then it was the 3 factory teams and the 2 main drivers. They were like, that's the final. The rest is just a little luck you can get through if anyone else messes up. So this is the first time in a long while we have a big grid of drivers that can be in the final. Not only a big grid about many cars, but this is like, I think that was a great time, and I hope a lot of drivers will join next year seeing that opportunity.
Yeah, and it's tough as a driver to have that strong of a grid, because on paper we're only 9 cars, but we don't have any back markers, like we don't have any mid. It's only top field. So if you do an average job, sometimes in the past, when we were 25 cars, you would be 10th, maybe 15th at worst, but there are still plenty of cars behind you. Now, if you do an average job, you can be last. And that's dude, last. But that's just the level there is. Like, the top is as strong as it's been for a long time, but we don't have 25 cars anymore, because I think maybe those who added up the numbers, they go and do Rally X Nordic maybe, or they go and do, not to say that is weak in any way. I just made the point how strong the French Championship is, but there is just no one who commits to the World Championship anymore without believing they can win. And we really saw that this weekend, that everyone was capable of winning on the right day. But should we move into the last topic of this podcast, the Battle of Technologies 2024? It was the first year of Battle of Technologies in the world of rallycross, and we were able to choose between having fully electric or fully internal combustion engine driven cars. It was a huge talking point before the season. Who will be the best? Who will have the advantage on which place? Tell me, Kevin, how do you see this first year of Battle of Technologies? How do you look back at it? Was it interesting?
Super interesting, but a bloody nightmare if you were in an electric in hindsight. So coming into the season, I think we're all quite excited about this new era and more cars, and that KMS went with the petrol cars and we didn't. That was a great thing, because then a top team switched technology. And I think we all thought, well, yes, we looked at the lap times from the year before. The electric were quicker than the petrol then, but something that everybody forgot to think of in the change when they increased the weight of the electric and decreased it for the petrol to get that half second difference that it was in the year before, to equalize. Then I think we forgot that there's a new tire, and the tire was so much stiffer and so much slippier, so it really penalized the electric cars so much more than we could ever imagine. And some studies have shown that it was at least 6/10 difference in the technologies every race, and this last one was just another factor to increase that number. It's probably to 8/10. It was a really, really tough year once we got to understand that there is not many straights on the rallycross track like we thought. There's a lot of corners, and I think nobody really understood how big penalty that weight is. I really respect the spare tires that they have in WRC now. That's 20 kilos in the back, and they're like, it makes big difference. I'm like, no, it doesn't make a big difference. And then it makes a huge difference. That's just so clear now. And I think generally everyone loved the action. It was so great action on track because there was a bit of differences and a big difference of speed. So, the strength of the petrol was just to fight the electric all the time, and we had to be clever, and the racing was great, I think, all the year. And it was just unfortunate that one technology was dominant to take the most wins. But in the end of the day, great racing, and I can just imagine how great it will be in the future when the balance is better and we can race on more equal terms, and we can have more different winners all the time, and you can actually have those fights for the win and not for second or third place.
Yeah, and to answer the question that everybody was asking a couple of months ago, which will be the better? It was internal combustion for 2024. It was the right choice. KMS went for that, and they proved it. Not only are they a strong team with strong drivers, they also made the right choice there, and was probably in pace one of Johan's most dominant seasons in terms of outright lap time. But I think it was a massive step forward to introduce Battle of Technologies, because last year we had only electric, and what the fans have been saying is that they miss that sound. And I can agree, like the sound of a rallycross car in the start revving up the engine is magic. Like it's 100%. Beautiful to listen to. It gets you that excitement, and now we have that again. It wasn't the same when it was silent before the start, but it makes no big difference if it's 5 internal combustion cars or 1, actually. Like when you're stood next to the start and at least 1 is revving up, you kind of get that adrenaline kick that we have been used to for so many years. And the second point is, I also think it's very interesting when the fastest car doesn't take the start. And that happened in Portugal, for example. So I think our theory was that the electrics would be faster in every start on all the tracks. It turned out not to be right. But in Portugal, we were able to take the start and then having to defend during the race. And if you're a fan of the Kristoffersson team, and if you're a fan of Johan, you got to see him doing a lot of overtakes this year. If you're a fan of us, you got to see us more in the front. If you're a fan of CE Dealer team, you got to see them being at the front of the race and controlling that, especially in the beginning of the year. But it was a lot more dynamic than it's been in the past. And you can choose now if you prefer electric, if you prefer combustion, you can still enjoy the World Rallycross Championship and look at the great racing that we have delivered. I think that was a big step forward for the sport, don't you think?
Yeah, so much. And still, to just not saying internal combustion engine, sustainable fuel. So it was, still that sustainability message. And okay, it's something we're working towards, but it's a step to say that there is more ways in the world to go sustainable than just electric. And I think we can see that Extreme Age is going hydrogen. That's a sustainable way, sustainable fuels, electric. There is many ways forward, and I'm just really proud of our sport that we can represent currently 2 of those ways forward at this time, which is just, I think is great that we're pushing that sustainable message, because in the end of the day, that's a hands-on spirit. We are very passionate about our sustainability. We've always been, and that's because of your family. When we got Sam into our world, that's where we're like, we need to take responsibility. We need to go electric. We need to push this way forward in the world to make sure that he has a place to live in the future that is not terrible. Because like growing up, having snow at Christmas for us, we don't have that anymore because of the climate change. There's not snow as much anymore where we live in Sweden. And we thought like, we want him to have that. I want my kids to have that. Like, we need to make something about it. So I'm really happy that not only was it a great step forward in battles and great action on track, it was also a step forward for sustainability in the long run. And I just can't wait to see what the next step is,
Yeah, and we got to keep the sustainability. I think rallycross should be wild. It should be big jumps. It should be gloves off racing, but we can also do all of this while being sustainable. And sustainable doesn't have to mean electric. It can mean a lot of things. Hydrogen, sustainable fuels, or electric. And I think rallycross should be the place where you can put this technology to the test, and you can show that with any technology, you can build a very fast race car to race in any condition.
Yeah. What would you say is your goal for Battle of Technologies 2025? What would be your that's what it should be? Because now we say 160 kilos extra. We have a bit more power. Or what do you think should be the weight and the differences between them to make it more equal.
Yeah, having just driven our own Peugeot internal combustion in the French Championship and then jumping back into the electric in Turkey, the biggest difference between the cars isn't actually the weight or the power or the shifting or turbo or anything like that. It's that prop shaft that connects the front to the rear. That really changes the driving style, that how aggressive you can go, how late you can brake especially. So like that for me is there's already a lot of differences in the technologies, and adding like weight on top of that, maybe it's too much. Maybe it should be more equal weight and equal power, and just being different in the way that the cars are built. Of course, I hope that we get less weight compared to them, but I don't want to like talk and say that it was unfair or fair, or whichever way. That's up to everyone to decide for themselves. And ultimately, the FIA will make the regulation, and they will make the studies to point us in what direction the balance of technologies, the battle of technologies and balance of technologies have to go. So it's a lot of words there, but let's see for 25. Hopefully we have a little bit less weight for us.
Yeah, exactly. I think, in the end, if we had the same weight, the same power, and let's say a mechanical prop shaft and an electronic prop shaft, then I think it would be a very good starting point. Then you equalize so many points. But again, some of those things are impossible to make happen cost-wise and regulation-wise and partner-wise, with so many things that is too complex to bring up here. But I mean, that would be a great point. But let's see what the FIA comes up with. They know the best, the big picture, and they really push forward with the world of rallycross. They can understand it's the sport of the future. So I'm really happy about them seeing that and moving forward. I think rallycross is in a great place. I'm really happy that we finished the season off well and strong, and I can't wait to see what the next year holds,
Yeah, I agree. We're going to have a lot of podcasts. We're going to try and speak once every week, get together, talk about different topics, and give you guys some good old stories. This was a catch-up of the last event of the 2024 season in Istanbul, Turkey, and a bit of a review on Battle of Technologies of 2024. We're going to have a lot of things to talk about. There's a lot of catching up to do, and like a lot of stories that's never been shared, that I hope this will be the right place to do that. But yeah, in the meantime, thank you for watching or listening today, and
like, subscribe, and follow.
See you next time.